Good day, campers. Thank you for being back in our, I've lost count, 26th, 27th, 28th episode.
You know, I don't know.
So something like that.
I have no idea.
Neither of us cares. We're back on the off chance because I'm completely caught up with work and Malcolm is caught up with trying to get out of here and going to sunnier and warmer climates. Back to semi-retirement, I guess. And
I think it's more like full retirement.
yeah, it's going to be full now.
I think so.
Oh dear, here we go. But don't worry, I'll drag him back in. I'll drag him back into it. Just when he thinks he's getting out. Straight back in. And I had the weekend off. We're in the middle of August 2025. And I thought, you know what, it's now or never because I've got a lot going on. I've had a lot going on. We both had a lot going on and we both will have a lot going on. So if that's not confusing enough. And who knows when we see each other again later this year or maybe next. It'll be a while.
I think so.
Yeah. So first of all, I think we need a little recap, and that's the Warwickshire event that we did in June.
Was it June?
Yeah, it was late June. Yeah, I thought it was July, but it was late June. And so for those that don't know, this was Dilly Plaza UK's 30th, and it was the 30th because it was exactly 30 years ago that Ian Griggs started Dilly Plaza UK.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, the 25th didn't happen because COVID, we had lockdown. So there was quite a bit of consternation about that because people had put money towards it and so forth. And then all of a sudden, but we ended up cancelling it before lockdown actually kicked in, and then a few weeks later actually lockdown kicked in, and then everybody went, all right, okay, yeah, I'll understand, it's all right then. So a year ago we had the event in Canterbury where the seminar has always been held, and all of a sudden now it's changed for a venue, and I was like, this is something I've been pleading for quite a few years already. Because I thought, you know what, Canterbury is absolutely spectacular to go to, but for a JFK thing, I don't think so. First of all, it's in the middle of the nowhere. It's in the bottom right corner of England, so anyone coming from north will have to go through London or around London, and it's quite a challenge to do so for anyone above London. So that's what, 3/4 of the country anyway. And it had been done for like 14, 15 or 20 years already, quite a long time. I think 2005, around something like that is when it started off 20 years ago. And yeah, it was just good to go somewhere else. And Neil and Tony worked hard on getting a place, especially Neil, driving around, finding it. And yeah, what we got now was just maybe one notch short from perfect. It scores 9.5 for me as far as I'm concerned on the scales.
It scores 9.99.
Yeah, yeah. It was just really good. It's in the state. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's being used a lot for corporate events, but because our event was starting on a Friday, this time it was a 3-dayer instead of a 2-dayer. And yeah, by Thursday evening everybody leaves, the corporate people, so Friday the place is ours, and Saturday, Sunday the place is definitely ours.
I thought it worked very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
And on top of that, you know, we've got our rooms about 3 minutes walk. Mine was 60 seconds away from our main room. The dining room was just around the corner, and you know, we had to go downstairs for the bar. Outside was 30 seconds walk, if that. So everything was just like is near perfect. You know, I mean, sure enough, you can have a say a minus on something that food wise, but you know what, overall it ticked 9 out of 10 boxes as far as I'm concerned. It was absolutely fantastic, and I really hope we're going back there. And I think everybody also had a great time.
Yeah.
The speakers as well, you know, we had all types of speakers. We had some remote ones, we had Americans, Canadians coming over, flying in, and we've had a bunch of Brits, and we had somebody from mainland Europe coming in as well, I think from Norway, and which was great. And you know, it's just nice to see that DP UK is just making a bit of leeway after having quite a few tough years, because when I joined 10-12 years ago, I was in that phase of the old guard, you know, the older guys that were there from the beginning. They were still running things. Ian was still around. You know, Stuart was running it. We were doing it in the Flying Horse, which was a pub in the middle of in the central of London, and which belonged to us on a Saturday, which was great. And you know, yeah, we had the place to ourselves for the whole day. And so yeah, just as an event, it was just absolutely stupendous. And I think also we're probably going back there next year. It wasn't cheap, but the quality made all up for it, and the quality was good too. I really enjoyed Andrew Eiler's talk, and I really enjoyed Paul Blow's talk. Paul Blow said to me from his talk that it started out, I said, yeah, you must have gotten some things from the Blonde Archives. He goes, yeah, you gave me all the Fair Play for Cuba Committee documentation. He says, and that's what I based in part my presentation on. And I thought,
Well, it's nice that somebody's reading it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and using it. So
And using it,
yeah,
yeah.
and actually using it. So that's really good.
Yeah.
That's always encouraging to see.
Yeah.
And that material is for everybody to see at the Malcolm Blunt Archives. We've had yeah, so and then Andrew Eiler is mega technical. It's like, go sit down for that, because and pay attention, because this is not going to be a simple, straightforward affair, although it is to him, it is. But
Yeah,
it's very technical and very.
When we spoke to him, I didn't quite get a semblance of understanding about the significance of, you know, he was talking about the final determinations
Of the ARB.
ARB, on the significance of the Lotus Notes. Remember we said, I said to you, where the Lotus, you copied it. I mean, I copied the Lotus Notes multiple times. You must have come across this, not again,
No,
not again.
no.
But you know, this is, you know, getting on to, if we're talking about what we need, significant stuff, what we should ask for is Lotus Notes unredacted. Unredacted.
Yeah.
Because that's effectively the ARRB database, totally released. That's all the emails. And there are people there we never got a sufficient understanding of the significance of. So
No, it's cool.
yeah.
Keep going.
So some of those, some of that stuff. I mean, I thought I suppose I'm talking primarily about Ann Buttimer, who was an investigator for the review board and seemed to suddenly disappear. That was involved in some key stuff, and Gene Wheaton stuff, I think, and. What we discovered, or what I discovered, was she had no files. If you went to the National Archives and you looked for Jeremy Gunn's files, you can find them. If you look for Doug Horn's files, you can find them. You know, you can find these people in there. But Ann Buttimer's stuff you can't find. But she appears in the email database, which is with this mysterious term, Lotus Notes. So the Lotus Notes need to be released full cloth. I think Rex said he had some enormous download, which he couldn't really understand, Rex Bradford couldn't understand, and I think that was the Lotus Notes, because it was so heavily redacted. And you could understand that. Why that would be redacted? Because there'd be a lot of personal and privacy, probably social security numbers, all sorts of stuff in there. But as they've been releasing all this stuff before, they definitely should release the ARRB database, which is Lotus Notes. Very important. Complete.
It's surprising and shocking to hear that what's missing, what Andrew Eiler said, what we know now, because the ARB was there to determine what was meant to be released.
Yeah.
But you can't even get the notes from the ARB to see what has actually been.
Well, you can get individuals.
I know, but
Ron Harron's files, about 34, 35 boxes. Although when I last looked, there were boxes of that stuff were redacted. You couldn't get it. I think it went to box 34 or 35.
right.
And Harron was one of the most, important guys. He came over from Department of Justice, and he did a good job. He's a guy where you can determine where, and when, and how much church material's missing, because he did it. His working notes are all there, they're page after page after page. So that's good stuff to have if you're looking. This is what's missing. It seems to me, as far as giving the Lunar Committee information that all the oxygen's been sucked out of the space, for whatever reason, we're not getting. Individually, I think people can write in, and they're going to get thousands of letters from people, and most of it's just going to go down a toilet. I mean, you have to have facilitated access, and luckily we have Jeff Morley to make some inquiries on our behalf, and he certainly put forward stuff with Rex Bradford. But it's not enough. We need more people. We needed more people.
We need more specifics.
We needed more people that would have sat on that bench testifying to the Lunar Committee. And I'm thinking really of Alan Dale, my friend. He's the executive director of the AARC, and he knows what to ask for, because we've discussed it over the years. But for whatever reason, probably because he thought Jeff would carry the torch, he didn't appear on the committee.
I think Alan would be probably the most suitable candidate.
He actually, right. He actually travelled with Dan Hardaway down to down.
Yeah.
But he really should have been on it.
And just boringly list everything.
I think that's a missed opportunity for us, because Alan knows a great deal about what's missing.
Yeah.
A great deal about what we should be asking for, and nobody else. Jeff Morley, God bless him, he's more focused on certain things.
Yeah, Jeff is very focused on the CIA, Joe Anides especially. Yeah, okay, that's his thing. Fair enough. Just like Prayer Man for me, he's got his Joe Anides. Yeah, exactly, it's
But you need to have
you need somebody who
a bigger picture.
The generic thing, and just say, listen, bring me the Vesiana into the HSCA interviews, and bring me the Stryker Hard Committee files. Yeah. Yeah,
but even with that, it's when I dig into it, it becomes much more not an easy task, because probably since I talked to you last time, I think, about Hartswijker, and I talked to Alan about Hartswijker, I've discovered that, because it's a permanent subcommittee, the overall, it gets more mysterious, the overall control of the collection lies within the Church Committee holdings as a whole. In other words, Gayton Fonzie always used to say to me, well, it was an add-on. It turns out, when you look at and you discuss it with people from legislative archives, because it's a permanent subcommittee, it's then for archival purposes, it's part of the overall church committee holdings. So it's not a separate thing.
So Schweigerhart falls on the church.
Yeah.
But does church fall under HSCA or not?
No, that church is SSCI,
Right, yeah.
Select
Yeah.
Subcommittee on Intelligence, which is like, their stuff gets released really on a grace and favour basis, although there are time limits. I think they do a 20-year review, and the church committees actually comes up October next year for the 50th review, 50-year review for the church committee.
Is that going to change anything, you reckon?
Well, it's got to be MDC, a mandatory classification review, so they'll have to go through what they have.
Or there's an automated process in place?
Well, it's a slightly different process with SSCI, but it's part of their 50-year mandate that they should look at the church committee. So that'll be a NARA exercise, National Archives will be looking at that.
But based on what we've seen from NARA's, it's not very. I can see you smiling. You're smiling already. You're grinning.
You don't hold that much hope.
I use the CIA thing. Hope for the best, but I expect the worst. So that's the way I look at things. This stuff.
I mean, even people like Judge Tunheim have called, 15 years ago, I think, called for the release of the church committee files. Publicly called for the total release. But the problem with the church committee files, if we accept this information I've got now, which is that Hartswijker is within their holdings. Bart, I went through the 40 boxes when they were first released at NARA, which was in 1998. I went through those boxes forwards and I went backwards. Later, when a further 16 boxes were released because of the review board sent down 2 staffers plus 5 interns for 5 working days to Archives 1 to go through the church files again. They found another 16 boxes. I went through those files, all 16 boxes, forwards and backwards. You cannot find, or you could not find, anything which you could attribute to Hartswijker. So when we talked about Hartswijker being part of the church holdings, where are they? It's almost like they are held separately, somewhere.
And Schweiker was quite damning, about what he experienced while being on that committee. I've seen some of the interviews and he just doesn't buy a single word of any of it.
No, I think it was a difficult situation. I think at the end of Hartswijker there was pressure for whatever they found or whatever they discovered not to be published, and I don't think it was. I think some anodyne report was published, but you can imagine with some of that, they had a really good investigator, and we talked about him before, Tom Moore, and Tom Moore really was. CIA were finding that guy extremely difficult to deal with, because
he knew what to get.
He knew where to look. He knew what to ask for, and when stuff was delivered to him, when Bassiano's files were delivered to him, he kicked up a big fuss because they arrived redacted. For someone that was clear top secret, so he gets redacted files. How does that work? And the same thing happened to him with George de Moranshill's files. They came redacted. So there was a lot of problems going on with Tom Moore, and hopefully I think Jeff Morley and Rex Bradford, I think they're going to try and get some contact with Tom Moore if the guy is still alive. I think it would be very useful to get him sitting and giving some testimony to the Lunar Committee.
It's something I was hoping for on April 1st, that somebody came forward, sitting there, some nondescript person, and just rattles off an incredibly boring list of files that are missing and that need to be found. That's the thing I expected.
Yeah, that would be me.
They should have flown you in. No, but just in general, just somebody say, this is missing, that's missing, we missed this, we don't have that, that's been redacted or is hidden or lost, etc., etc. We're looking for files from this, from that. And nothing is basically...
But you don't have to go very far. If you go to the AARC website, you can see Alan posted this list of stuff that NARA could be doing now.
Yeah, and I know that Joe Bax has done also a fair bit of work with the RIF numbers and so forth. But I'm more thinking like towards, you know, if we don't talk to specifics, but talk towards the American people as such and make it clear to them and say, well, from this period, we don't have this, 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 this. From that period, from this committee, we don't have that, that, and that, and that.
Yeah.
And then people get like an indication of how much is actually missing and or destroyed. Yeah, because there's always something happening to these files. And then, you know, I mean, in my opinion, there should be a separate committee with subpoena powers that should be able to go in and say, hey, we want this, 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 and this. Let us have a look at it right now. It's over. It's been more than 50 years, you know. And also, wouldn't it be nice just in overall to put a 50-year, what do you say that, deadline on it and say like after 50 years stuff can be deleted, can be released, regardless of the subject. I mean, a lot of people are laughing now when they hear that, because especially here in the UK, families are trying to keep their names intact because great-great-granddaddy did something stupid during the First World War and had to have it locked up and hidden as such. I mean, for all the wrong reasons, locked up as such. And you know, we're much stricter here in Europe about certain things than in the States. Yeah. I mean, I've got to admit, this is what they forget, is that in the States you have a lot more easy access to quite a few documents.
Yeah, it's a real struggle here. Yeah,
and here,
true, yeah.
compared to here or in France or in the Netherlands, forget about it. It's just locked up for life practically. And that's one of the things that my main criticism is that talking about all these documents that need to come out is one thing, but reading up about them is a whole different aspect. And I find overall, those people that shout the loudest about these documents aren't really paying attention to what's actually in them or what's been released as such, and then basically look at things and compare, well, what's in the last batch and how does that relate with the first batch. And people say, well, this is less redacted or that. Yeah, but what is the significance of this? And very rarely you only get to see, oh yeah, well, this name was changed or such and such. Joannides, I didn't hear or see not a lot of new stuff, although that his name was Howard something, and
Gubler.
Oh, Gubler, yeah. And that they knew back then of a contact that was called Howard, but they didn't have a last name.
No, I can remember reading Jeff Morley's correspondence to CIA, and several pages, I think Jeff mentions the name Howard. He tries to make progress with CIA, which is not an easy thing. I mean, I did get quite annoyed that, you know, he seemed to be getting smeared with like anti-Semitic quotes, all sorts of stuff people were throwing out, and I just thought, well, you know, whatever you think of the importance of Joanidas, he's been digging in the ditches and has been persistent for so many years, you know, and maybe I've been fortunate because I can see it from the inside. I can see the correspondence with the review board, the correspondence with the CIA, and CIA playing games with him. You know, oh, shall we give him a briefing, or shall we not give him? You know, it's pathetic, really. You know, it's the Joanidas thing is interesting from the point of view they've really been stubborn about the releases. You know, they have stonewalled on Joanidas for so many years.
Like you said, all those years, euphemistically kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know he took them to court 10 years ago. I remember that.
Yeah, he's been
And then
trying
and around that same time, he found out that Joanidas was in New Orleans around that time, when Oswald was in New Orleans.
Yeah, yeah. Coincidence.
Yeah, as it happens. Hello, Monty.
You gonna take a Monty break?
Yeah, go on then. No, so I think it's interesting, but is it leading to something? I have this with a lot of CIA stuff. It's interesting, and it's nice to read, but at the same time, where does it lead to? You know, and in 99 out of 100 cases, I go, it doesn't lead anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of some sort of surveillance program or the DRE people being involved with Oswald is a very interesting topic, I think. There's clearly something going on.
Maybe one day it will come out what actually Oswald's role was, or what they knew about Oswald, but I mean,
Well,
we
that's
know
the case.
certain things.
What did they know and when did they know it? And it goes back, you know, it does go back a long way with CIA because they obviously had the knowledge. You know. I was thinking this week, really, when I was thinking about doing the actually making that step from semi-retired to completely retired on the Kennedy business. No, one qualification. The one qualification is I've got a 4-drawer filing cabinet in my library in Gran Canaria, and that's got files and files, folders of CIA technical stuff, which I want to get into and actually write some sort of helpful, hopefully, handbook to a lot of CIA stuff.
Oh dear.
To do with structures and stuff. And I've got quite a lot of their headquarters regulations, which is like so difficult, so dense to try and make sense of. It's difficult stuff, but it's significant stuff because it makes a difference. You know, you can once you really understand that, you know.
Understand decision making.
Yeah, how things work, basically. You know.
It's like the corporate environment I'm in.
Yeah.
It's similar. It's blind. There are, you know who your leaders are, but at the same time, decision making is, you don't really know where it's coming from and who's decided as such. That doesn't mean all of a sudden I compare my employer to the Central Intelligence Agency from the 60s, but there's a certain structure in there where you can just go, yeah, there's some affiliation or resonance or recognition of some sort where you go, yeah, that is. But then this is what from the Central Intelligence Agency 60 odd years ago, 70 years ago already. Yeah, no wonder that's being incorporated one way or another in business anyway. I mean, if I look at what we're doing now with technology, that all comes from the military.
Yeah.
All of it. all of it from the military from the last 40, 50 years is basically being adapted for civilian life as such. Augmented reality, virtual reality, things like that. Now, the Luna thing hasn't finished yet.
Is there a time period?
Well, this is the thing. Nobody knows. I mean, there's not one person that goes, yeah, this is what's happening and this is what's scheduled. But I also know that they're looking into UFO stuff. Yeah, and they're looking into other things. And then they, of course, they start to think, okay, what sets the precedent? What's the most important part? And you know what? I feel that the 60-year-old murder investigation, of which there's been so much quacking and so much misinformation, and even now, when I see that committee happening, because I saw maybe 2 to 5% of material of which I thought, now that's handy, that's useful, that's where you can move on with, whereas the other 95% was just filler, misinformation, stupidity, clerical error, you name it, whatever you want to categorize it, but it was just an absolute complete and utter lost opportunity. And like I said, I hope they find Tom Moore. I hope they find certain people that are able to concisely put together.
I hope they find Alan Dale.
I think Alan Dale secretly thinks, I hope they're going to find me, but yeah. I mean, he would be an excellent candidate to, and so would Rex Bradford. Rex
is great.
Rex Bradford would be an excellent candidate as well, because he would tell you exactly what's missing or what needs to be found.
That's right.
It needs to be looked for.
That's right.
It's Rex and Alan, pretty much. I'm not interested. You know what? The whole Joannius thing, I couldn't care less about it. I don't find it interesting enough. And so what? So what if he was there to monitor Oswald? So there's a connection between Oswald and the CIA. But that doesn't mean him less guilty of the Kennedy assassination. You know, it doesn't. It makes him involved of some sort with the Central Intelligence Agency. And in what capacity? It wasn't a code name, blah blah blah, or an agent as such. But you know, if he was, they knew about him. Whether he was an actual source with the cryptonym, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But the importance of it, I don't know, that for some reason they think that means something. And to me it doesn't. I think to me the answer lies in Dallas, because that's where the murder happened. The murder didn't happen in Langley or in Washington. It might have been thought out in Washington, but the actual murder happened in Dallas. And for some reason, especially the ARB, they didn't really go back to Dallas. If I look at all the stuff, the ARB went actually outside its, how shall I say, you guys have the word for that, I can't, as a Dutchman it's hard to figure, the realm of what the investigation, the area of investigation, so let's talk it like that, yeah? Well, we know what the ARB was supposed to do. They were supposed to see whether these documents were supposed to be released or not released. Instead of that, they started interviewing other people. So the ARB took liberties. The autopsy, for instance, they went widely outside the realm of just investigating whether the documentation should come out, because they just kept their own interviews. Military intelligence is another thing, yeah. I'm not knocking it, because we found out more things because of what's happened with the autopsy and the 112th Military Intelligence Group. But they just went further than they should have done. I spoke to Andrew Eiler about it, and he's been talking to some of the guys of the ARB. He
was talking to Chet Rhodes. He was like their computer guy. Yeah.
And he also spoke to Jeremy Gunn once or twice.
Okay.
But didn't go too well. So I bet every time, because he started, you know, Andrew's really precise. And when you then start asking really precise questions, it almost feels like an interrogation.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can understand why people just go, sod off you.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with you. But I mean, that was quite interesting to hear that he's doing all that job. But I was always under the impression they go, well, the ARB was trying to do what the HSCA couldn't do, but they're complete separate entities when it comes to investigation, when it comes to the results, when it comes to how they got things done and so forth. And you know what? But all of them, I think, is just a lack of focus of where they should have been focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, all areas are interesting to me, but what did Cuba have to do with all of this with Dallas? I mean, it's an incredible subject, it's an incredibly interesting subject, yeah, and absolutely fascinating tales about this. Connections to the Central Intelligence Agency and connections to Oswald, sure, but what does it actually have to do with the killing in Dallas? Now then you start thinking about, well, what about Harlandale Avenue, for instance? That is
Well, I suppose
something.
you'd have to argue that without intelligence agencies, without the U.S. military, the killing in Dallas could never have been carried off. You know, that's why it's such a wide sweep.
Yeah,
You know?
I said always, if you look at this as regime change, as a coup d'état,
Yeah, coup d'état. Yeah.
if it is a coup d'état, you don't get a coup d'état without the army. Every coup d'état, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can remember in the world, has had the blessing of the army. Without the army, you don't have a coup d'état.
But you have problems, you see, when you get into intelligence agencies because of the number of people that get absorbed into intelligence agencies from the military and vice versa. It's like a revolving door almost, you know. And really, when you look into the formation of CIA, it was nearly all military people involved. And when you go through years and years and years, you find a lot of the people in senior positions inside the agency, inside CIA, are military people, you know, or former military people. You know, it's like
They're all intertwined.
yeah, that's the word I was looking for, intertwined. So it's a very, it's an impossible task to separate. You can't separate in a coup. You can't separate the military from the intelligence agencies.
Okay, let's talk something else. Documentation. You've done it up till 2018, going to Nara. 7 years ago already. No itch of going back?
I don't think I could do the journey, you know. And then when you get there, the last couple of years I was there, it was just like, you know, such a difficult system to traverse because you couldn't get access to the special access staff. You couldn't get access to the Kennedy people because they were working on document releases, the archivist. So the only person you could deal with, a very nice guy, he didn't really know anything. You know, he had a small amount of training, but when you asked him specifics, he couldn't, like, you know, he was lost. And that meant you sat around for hours, you know,
Waiting.
and then you might get something on your card which wasn't what you asked for. So it got very difficult. I mean, in retrospect, we had the good times, you know, back in the 90s, the early 90s through into the 2000s. Especially in the 90s, obviously, because you had access to the original evidence. You could actually get that before Trudy Huskam Peterson decided to stop access for.
Oh, she did that.
Yeah, she did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a Dutch person?
Well,
Is that a Dutch name?
that's a Dutch name.
Oh, right.
Huiskamp.
Huiskamp. Okay.
Huiskamp.
Yeah, right.
Home camp.
Okay. Anyway, that's by the
Interesting.
way, but I mean, it's just one example of not being able to get to stuff anymore. You know, and we've talked about the significance of that with Oswald's notebook.
Yeah.
The fact that like you get these hard pressing on every page.
Indentations.
Indentations. If you went for an ESTA test, you certainly get additional names, additional telephone numbers.
I've probably done it already. If they haven't done their job. That's the way I look at it.
Well, they would argue that it would destroy the integrity of a historical.
No, they did it already for themselves before they share with somebody else.
So yeah, that's one of the things that one would like Nara to do, but don't hold your breath. But there are many things, when I was thinking this week before you came down, am I a researcher? I don't. I'm thinking more and more that I'm not really a researcher. I'm a guy that digs.
Scholar.
Scholar, someone that's really dots every I and crosses every T. I mean, I think Joe Backus would call me a scowler, not a scholar. Because I cut corners. I do things in a non-academic way. So many times.
I know. They don't like that.
Because I thought very early on you just have to get through a lot of this stuff. Although I went through many months of copying riffs. I went through riffs and riffs and riffs, and then when you're actually going through and you're trying to cover so much ground, that's another page to copy. There's more time all the time, and so
You end up cutting corners.
I think I've come to the conclusion that what I am is someone that provides signposts for other people. There's you go look, you go check, you go do this. Here's a signpost of where you should be looking, in my opinion. So I'm not a researcher. I'm a signposter. I'm more of a signposter.
I mean, I had the luck that I just was given everything by you. And I had to figure it all out. And that was back in, I started with yours in 2019. And who's Bill Sturbitz? And things like that, And
well, you ought to do a massive printout of all our correspondence back and forth. When you used to say to me, "What the hell does this mean? Who's this? What's this from? Where's this from?" Because
I didn't see the bigger picture. You did.
Because that would be interesting for a lot of people. They've given me great insight into the way I do things. It's really. If you've still got all that stuff.
I've got everything.
Did you hear that? I've got everything.
I've got everything. I copied everything. I practically copied 99% of what I picked up.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about our back and forth between us by email. When you would say to me...
I've got that too.
Have you really?
Yeah, all our email correspondence is still in there.
Yes. Because that would be very useful to people. The backwards and forwards. What does this mean? What does this document
I would send a document.
Because you would send a document to me and you would say, what the hell is this?
Yeah, and you'd be coming back and go, oh, that's such and such, doing this and this.
Yeah.
All right. And then slowly it started to become clear, like, all right, okay, this guy thought, yeah, it doesn't interest me. Onto the side. It was the old stuff that you got from the Municipal Archives in Dallas, of which I haven't seen a trace anywhere else.
Really?
where you found handwritten notes and things like that. And then later on I tried to look for them and I go, they must be at UNT, which is University of North Texas.
Yeah.
Nothing there. Nothing there. So certain handwritten notes are like Malcolm specials. They don't exist. They might just be somewhere in some folder where it just say handwritten notes, you know, and they don't have a clue about it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. And the other thing that was really frustrating for me this year was artificial intelligence is just not up to the job as we want it to be. The problem with artificial intelligence is like, especially when you transcribe, it doesn't know to assign what part of text to whom said what. So you'd have to listen to the tape again and look at the transcript and hit paragraph, knowing when who is asking the question, in this case Earl Golds, and the person he's talking to. And Alan got all these tapes of all these conversations, and Earl Golds is talking to all these people in the know. Now if you want to, I mean, out of all the people, and I'm not talking Ainsworth, I'm talking proper serious journalists, and Ainsworth ain't one, who try to know or find out what certain people did, part of that machinery. Yeah. Whether it's DPD, whether it's City Hall, FBI, you name it. And talking to them and get to hear the stories. And it's really hard because I've got 300 interviews, but I don't know who they're with. I don't have any inkling. I have no idea. Nobody put a list up and say, that's for such and such. So I'd have to listen to the subject and go, that's about this person, such and such, and that's as far as I can get at this point. But I know that these conversations are filled with some gold, but it's very hard to figure it out at this point. So, but we'll get there. AI will sort that out, just like the picture with Prayer Man. That's why they don't give the film back, because they know it's game over. I mean, you know what's game over. When it's game over, everybody's filling their pants and everybody runs away and hope that everybody is dead by that time. So, they're dead now, it's all done, blah, 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 you know. So, shall we have a tea break and a potty break and continue?
Yeah.
Yeah? So, part 2 to follow. Ciao.